you always introduce that by saying, your character says, I remember when this happened, or, words like that. And then you might want to italicize that dream sequence or the flashback. Is just a way to separate it from the main bulk of what you're writing. So, and whenever you use scripture, whenever you're actually quoting scripture, you should italicize that also. And that's just another little, thing that it is authentic and it came directly from the Bible. And of course, you know how to accent that, so we'll, to give the version of the Bible that you're using too. The other thing I wanted to talk about is we were talking last week about how much information that you give. Now, you need to give as much information as it takes to get your point across. You do want to have care of how you present the information because you want it to be received well. So, in the first chapter, you don't plot out everything that you have to say. You have to, again, we talked about progression, and this is another point where progression is important. You're going to build up pieces of information. Yes?
What if basically your whole story is about flashbacks, about things that happened in the past?
If it's can I say autobiographical? Then you wouldn't do that. You wouldn't do that. It would be more or less if it was like a fiction work and your character you need to provide some information that is not available yet because it happened in someone's past.
But you were saying
italicize just that, but in that kind of situation. But if the whole book is autobiographical, then you don't. Only within that biography, you're telling it and all of it is going to be going back. But if there's, say, a dream, in the middle of you telling your story, if there's a dream, you might want to italicize that, just to separate it from the bulk of the text. Mm-hmm.
Thank
you. You're welcome. So then about the ideas, I didn't want it to sound as if I want you to limit the information that you give. I don't at all. What I want you to do is to make sure you present it in the best way that it's received by your readers. Is that clear? Okay. All right. Very good. We're going to talk about story prep. And when you're typing, this is more of a mechanical thing now. We're going to jump off. Be sure and use the tools in Microsoft Word because they underline misspelled words in red. And they have a grammar check, and they're underlined in green if your grammar doesn't match. You don't have to use those things, but you should always click on it and see if there's a way that you could clarify through that. It questions it because it doesn't think. It just says this is not the proper sentence structure. Well, you still, have to determine. Maybe you don't want to use the proper sentence structure. But you should at least look at those things and try to determine if it will help you tell your story better. And then you want to read it, and then you want to reread it, and you want to read it again. Don't be afraid of revisions. Don't be afraid to go back and read it again. Now, at some point, you have to be satisfied. And you have to say, right, you can't keep doing it over. But you do have to be satisfied that you have done it to the best of your ability. And not like, okay, I'm through, Like, okay, I think I got this now. I think I've said what I needed to say, and I think I've said it well. And then once you've done that, you want to have somebody else read it. Somebody whose opinion you value. Someone who is close enough to you, and you value their opinion. If your best friend doesn't like to read books, that would not be a person to consult. You don't want to leave them out because they'll, well, how come you didn't let me read? Well, okay. So you include them, but their opinion will be, if they don't like to read, take it with a grain of salt. Okay? But have someone whose opinion you do value read. And then don't be afraid if they say, well, I didn't get this here, or what does that mean there? Because that's why you had them read it. You know what's in your head when you write. But oftentimes what happens is I'm telling a story, and I forget that you don't know me from Adam. So you don't know all the color that fills in that story. And that's the part that the reason that you want to have someone else read. And because they can tell you, you started talking about here, but you didn't give me enough. And as an editor, I will tell you that is often what I say. You were going along great, but then you made this sentence, and I want to know more. Where's the rest? And it's just something that, as writers, we have to make a conscious effort to make sure that we are communicating fully and giving all the details of the part of that story. So they've read it now, and they've made suggestions or comments or whatever. Some of them you've taken to heart. Some of them you might not. And that's okay. Now you need to have your work edited. You need a totally objective eye to read your story. Your story deserves to be edited. Now, as a writer, I wasn't all that keen with it. I thought I did a pretty darn good job when I wrote my first book. And my son said, who is a writer, that kid, boy, God bless me, he comes up with some good stuff. He said, Mom, an editor only makes you better. And so when they edited my book, I found, for the most part, there were some things in there that were just slightly ambiguous. Some of the things they wanted to change was my style or my flavor. And so I did not accept those changes because it's my style and my flavor. But for the most part, the changes that they made were pretty good. Now, I'd like to think and say, well, that's because I'm a great writer, But that's kind of irrelevant. It doesn't matter how well you write. You need to have your work edited. And don't be afraid of it. You are the author. You still have complete and ultimate control of what you've written. So it's up to you to decide which edits you will accept or not. Yes?
What would you consider a proper page?
Well, we kind of generally edit like at 3 cents a word. And I had to I can't convert that to pages right off the top of my head, but generally 3 cents a word. Now, if in the process of editing, there's a lot of rework that's needed, that means you're going to have to fix it and then have it reread. So that could increase the amount. So now my process as a publisher is if I read you, I'm going to edit one chapter and I'm going to make sure that you are in agreement with what I've done. And then we kind of go on, and I can tell you how much it's going to take to rework and all those kinds of things.
So per word instead of per hour?
I think per word or per page are the primary ways that editors charge.
If you have like 1,000 words on per page at 3 cents, it's more like $3 a page.
Okay.
Yeah. And that's the calculation.
She did the math, y'all. Yes.
What's the name of your book, and is it in the bookstore now?
The name of my book is 5 Revelations, and it was in the bookstore.
Okay.
I assume, yeah. Okay, so have your work edited. Yes.
I have a question. Do you feel not changing your style, do you feel that hurt you?
No.
Or do you think that was a fun? Stay with it.
Yeah. I did accept some of the changes that they made, that they suggested, because I could see where there was a better choice of words or a better way of expression. But, if part of what you're writing is a stylized piece, then again, you've looked at your audience and you've determined that they will speak this language. So that's okay. But, you know, if your stylized portion of it is unclear to your audience, then you want to go back to the drawing board. And it's not a bad thing to go back to the drawing board. It's not a bad thing to have to revise things, especially as we talked previously about writing in pencil. And you do that so that